progressive lenses brand worldwide.
Dalal Street ends a range-bound session with marginal losses. Mid-caps outperform the blue chips. The rupee weakens marginally against the dollar. The government refuses to release the RBI's report on why it breached the inflation target for 9 months in a row, says the provisions of the RBI Act and regulations do not provide for making the report public. The union government tells Parliament it is not considering any proposal to restore the old pension scheme, tells opposition ruled states who have refused to adopt the new pension scheme it cannot return the accumulated corpus as there is no provision under current laws. Dalmia Bharat acquires cement, clinker and power plant from JP Associates for 5,600 crore rupees. Dalmia Bharat stock rises in trade as the deal adds cement capacity of more than 9 million metric tons per annum. Chaos across airports in India due to long queues and delayed security check-ins. Aviation Minister Jyotiraditya Scindia visits the Delhi airport to take stock. Says the number of entry gates have been increased and more steps are being taken to reduce crowds. Air India's long-haul flights delayed by several hours, adding to the chaos at airports. The company says some North American flights were delayed due to slower than expected issuance of airport entry passes. Nandan Nilekani backs the government's decision to withdraw the data protection bill after 2 years of deliberations, as the bill was getting bulkier and needed to be more thoughtful. Also hints that the central bank digital currency will not hurt the growth prospects of UPI. That's a CNBC-TV18 exclusive. The government is likely to ease the windfall profit tax on oil and gas companies at its next review meeting on the 15th of December. Sources say the fall in crude oil prices and diesel cracks could provide more elbow room. The Supreme Court lashes out at the union government for a delay in payment of 4,500 crore rupees in arbitral award to Reliance Infra in the Delhi Metro case. The court warns that it will take a very serious view in case of non-compliance, sets the 14th of December as the deadline. After historic victory for the BJP, Bhupendra Patel takes oath as the Chief Minister of Gujarat for the second time. 16 other ministers also sworn in at a high-profile ceremony with Prime Minister Modi and BJP Chief Ministers in attendance. And NASA's Orion capsule splashes down in the Pacific Ocean after a historic 25-day journey around the moon.
I just pray and hope कि अब चीज़ें कुछ सुधरेंगी, क्योंकि मेरे जैसे कई लोग होंगे, किसी मेडिकल इमरजेंसी भी हो सकती है. I request ministry to take at least proper action against this authority.
We have 16 gates at the departure end here, and this becomes a choke point in many manners. Only 14 gates were for passengers and 2 were for crew and specially abled. We have now increased that to 16 gates for passengers and an additional 2 for crew and specially abled.
Well, that is the big story. Chaos at airports across the country as air travel continues to be painful. Delhi has seen serpentine queues, delayed check-ins and long waiting hours days after the aviation minister chaired a meeting with airport officials to take stock of complaints of congestion at Indian airports. In fact, Aviation Minister Jyotiraditya Scindia visited the Delhi airport this morning to take stock of the situation. He was seen interacting with airport officials and security personnel. Scindia also told Network 18 that the number of entry gates has now been increased and more steps are being taken to reduce the time taken to clear security. So what is causing the chaos at India's airports? Well, for starters, air traffic in Indian airports is now nearing pre-pandemic levels. Pan-India air traffic touched 4 lakh yesterday. Delhi airport on an average handles around 1.9 lakh passengers and about 1,200 flights daily. Now, this has taken a toll on the CISF staff, which is responsible for airport security. Check-ins, as we've already highlighted, a big crunch there in manpower. A quick check at the latest passenger load factor. All major airlines currently operating at over 90% passenger load factor, which means that there is barely any empty seat on any flight. In fact, Delhi airport officials have told the Indian Express that they have 5,000 CISF staffers and the number hasn't gone up since 2017. Now, Delhi airport authorities have presented an action plan to Minister Scindia. It includes digital display boards showing the wait time, crowd managers and ushers to guide travellers, real-time updates on social media, among others. Meanwhile, Air India's long-haul flights, and this is a separate story altogether, have been delayed by several hours over the weekend, adding to the chaos at airports. The Delhi-Toronto flight on Friday night, for example, was delayed by 9 hours, according to Flight Radar. The flight has been regularly delayed this month. Air India has regretted the inconvenience caused to passengers and it said that some North American flights were delayed due to slower than expected issuance of airport entry passes. But that continues to be a story with delays being reported across Air India's flights coming in from the US. Our colleague Pallavi Ghosh here speaking with the Aviation Minister Jyotiraditya Scindia at the Delhi airport this morning. Listen in.
I had taken a meeting last week to make sure that we ease off the congestion at our airports. I made a physical visit today. These are not steps that have been announced by government alone. I have taken close to a 2-hour meeting with all stakeholders in the aviation ecosystem, be it CISF, be it BCAS, be it DGCA, be it the airport operator, which is DIAL, be it all the airlines together. And we've actually done a full process study in terms of where the bottlenecks are occurring. How do we ease up those bottlenecks? In summary, succinctly to put it across to you, we have 16 gates at the departure end here. And this becomes a choke point in many manners. Only 14 gates were for passengers and 2 were for crew and specially abled. We have now increased that to 16 gates for passengers and an additional 2 for crew and specially abled. I've also mandated that we need to be able to put up boards across every gate that talks about the wait time at every single gate. And therefore, if I'm a passenger and I get off maybe at gate 1, but I see that gate 8 has a less wait time, I will proceed to gate 8 and enter the airport from there. I've also told the airport operator to make sure that we have usherers in place that can direct passengers.
I see that today.
To less.
But you also have this Digi Yatra app. You think that's going to streamline because there are complaints that the interface. Yeah.
There are the greater the adoption of Digi Yatra, I think it will facilitate in many ways all the crowds that we see both at the entry point as well as the security check-in. But along with this solution, many of the usherers you see here today, but I have said the usherers by themselves are not good enough. They must have contact with the command and control center that senses the crowd capability across each gate so that the usherers then can do their job more efficiently of guiding people to less crowded gates. We then move to the second bottleneck.
Yes,
and the second bottleneck
that's where the security check takes place.
Is the security check-in. The key issue there is the security check-in process and the ATRS automatic tray retrieval systems. There is a clogging there in terms of capacity. So originally we had 11 plus 2, 13 in place. Today, in the last 5 days, we have increased that to 16. Over the next 2 days, we are going to try and see if there's enough space in between the 2 lines of the ATRSs to create an additional one. So hopefully we will go up to 17.
Well, that is Jyotiraditya Scindia, the aviation minister, on the steps being taken to try and decongest the airports. And this is, of course, the story that was playing out at the Delhi airport. The situation is pretty similar across airports, at least large metro airports at this point in time. To take the discussion forward, we're joined by Kapil Kaul, the CEO of India and Middle East Division at CAPA. Kapil, many thanks for joining us here on CNBC-TV18. You know, the problem really seems to be that air traffic is back to pre-COVID levels. We're crossing 4 lakh passengers a day when we talk about passengers on the move. But what is clear is that the manpower hasn't been enhanced proportionately. Government officials telling the Indian Express that the CISF staff is the same that was in number as 2017. Now, that clearly seems to be a large part of the problem.
Well, Shireen, first of all, I think congestion in peak times is not new. We may have forgotten that prior to COVID, the infrastructure was choking as well. So we may have been caught off guard a bit with the demand coming so strongly, and every day there has been an increase particularly in December. Maybe the system, particularly after COVID, may have been a little slack in terms of adopting to this massive, demand revival that we are seeing, particularly in the month of December. But we're not new to congestion. We are not new to such heavy congestion that we have seen at airports. It has happened before. It has got highlighted this time much more seriously than before. But it's not new. We had these issues much before, and the CISF staff has not been. The CISF staff is not increased for 5 years. There may be security staff that have not increased for years. The infrastructure is still the same, and we are back to pre-COVID. So I don't think there is anything significant that has changed, except that there is a lot of social media unrest about these delays, and I'm sure the public outcry is very strong. But I'm not surprised that it's something very different that we are seeing this December compared to previous Decembers. Maybe slightly more congested because of as I said,
Yeah, I would have to say, Kapil, I would have to say that while we may have forgotten congestion, especially through the COVID period, because, people were not flying, and even when the restrictions lifted, it was relatively sort of muted traffic. And so we are now back to pre-COVID levels in terms of traffic, and hence the congestion seems that much more visible. But, even previously, I don't remember this kind of, at least in the recent memory, this kind of waiting, this kind of, and I don't want to use this word lightly, but mismanagement. I mean, I for myself, for instance, and I did tweet to the Delhi airport as well as to the minister, because there was absolutely no one available on ground to manage the situation, whether it was entry into the airport or it was through security checks. There was no official to help intervene, guide, and say, okay, prioritize the people who need to board at a particular point in time, because everybody was saying, I'm boarding, and it was a free-for-all. So, I understand that congestion itself is not new, but from here on, to try and ensure that it does become relatively painless, what is it that you believe can be done? And, there is no silver bullet to this. All of this is going to take time. What is it that you believe can be done in the near term?
First of all, Shreen, before I come to Delhi Airport and other airports in India, just to tell your audience that this is an international issue now. You see the flights in Europe. There are pilot strikes, pilot walkouts, French air traffic. You have cabin crew strike. You have ground handling. The entire winter schedule in Europe is got wrecked. This follows what we saw in summer, where all the non-supply chain issues got impacted, particularly labor-related. If you go deeper and analyze in the United Kingdom, this is not limited to aviation. Across all sectors, they're having strikes and challenges. New realities post-COVID are emerging. So whilst we must look at decongestion measures quickly, but this is happening across Europe, United Kingdom, that post-COVID realities are a little different.
Right.
And yes, I think the decongestion measures could have been done proactively, but I don't think we can do anything significant till the traffic eases. You will definitely have incremental benefits to the passengers that what we saw of late will improve significantly. But these things can't be changed over.
Yeah.
There is no magic bullet to change it. You can make it.
Yeah, you're right.
If you have,
there is no magic
system
bullet.
Which is alert.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And you're right also in pointing out that what we are seeing happen across the aviation sector around the world is that, airlines, airports had cut back on capacity, had cut back on staff through the course of the pandemic, and they're now having trouble to bring people back on board. And that is also leading to the kind of delays, congestion, baggage being lost, and so on and so forth across international airports as well. And of course, we're seeing this play out at this point in time back home. Let's see how much of the measures being taken will alleviate some of the pressure and some of the stress. But if you are flying out from any major airport, especially over the festive period, over the holiday season, starting, through the course of December, then I think we need to be prepared that it is going to take longer to just be able to clear security and so on and so forth. But Specifically on Air India, Kapil, and I want to understand what you make of what's going on there, because they did have a VRS. We're given to understand that because of the shortages that they are apparently facing on the crew front, they're now asking for an extension as far as the VRS is concerned. People may be asked to stay back on. They're also trying to hire. They've added capacity, are in the process of adding capacity, especially on the international circuit. What do you make of what's going on in Air India and how long this pain is expected to last? Because flight delays over the weekend, 7 hours, 9 hours or longer.
Shireen, can you hear me?
I can.
Can you hear me? Hello?
I can, Kapil. Go ahead.
Okay. So what I was saying is that I think the expansion in Air India is quite aggressive. And these are the initial pain points that you would see for an organization in transition. Obviously, they will do whatever is required to eliminate it. But the fact they're expanding at the same time, you have to ensure that you have, whether it's crew, operating crew, or a flying crew, or a cabin crew, those need to be in place. It's going to take a while, frankly. The kind of expansion that we are seeing, this is a transition pain. I don't see anything more than that. I think they will get handle of it pretty soon. But this is a challenge whenever you are expanding. This not only for Air India, for other carriers. That I think the dynamics with respect to labor have changed. It's not very easy to get labor. Particularly what has happened during COVID. So I think this is a transition phase. Air India and other airlines have to accept it.
Yes, but I would imagine that then there also needs to be some introspection and a review of airlines adding capacity without having the proportionate or the requisite manpower, because at the end of the day, it is the common citizen that ends up suffering. So perhaps, between the government, the airlines and the regulator, this is a matter that needs to be reviewed and
Shireen,
looked into.
I must also add right
many
now,
thanks for joining us here.
I just want to add very quickly that there is a very serious capacity shortage, both in domestic and international. We have almost about 75 to 100 aircrafts grounded, and the demand is coming back very strong. So the airlines are doing whatever is possible to make sure that they can add capacity. In planning for that capacity addition, there are bound to be challenges with respect to labor or related issues, because we have significant supply chain issues, and now non-supply chain issues are also being confronted. So just to keep your audience aware that there is a serious capacity issue because the aircrafts are grounded.
Yes, there is a serious capacity issue as well, and that further is accentuating the pain that we are seeing even as far as air traffic and air ticket prices are concerned. That's also being reflected in how much you're paying out for a ticket at this point in time. But thanks very much for that reality check, Kapil. We can only hope that things change, but we need to be measured about how quickly we can expect change at this point in time. We will head into a break, but up next, Dalmia Bharat acquires cement, clinker and power plant from JP Associates for the 5,600 crore rupee. More on that deal when we return. $497. The broader markets outperformed the blue chips with the mid-cap index ending with gains of 0.5%. The big corporate story, Dalmia Bharat has acquired cement, clinker and power plant from JP Associates for 5,600 crore rupees. The Dalmia Bharat stock rising in trade as the deal adds cement capacity of more than 9 million metric tons per annum. The Union government has refused to release the RBI's report on why it breached the inflation target for 9 months in a row. In a reply to Parliament, the Finance Ministry said the provisions of the RBI Act and regulations do not provide for making the report public. Lata joins us now with more. Lata, RBI had said the decision on releasing the letter is up to the government. Now the government has decided against making it public, telling Parliament that it's within the law and the law mandates it not to do so.
Well, basically, it's passed up an opportunity for public debate on something which is of interest to the entire economy. That's the impact. And just a word on background, as you said, the MPC's mandate was to keep it between 2 and 6%. And if you fail for 9 months, then this is what the law says. When RBI fails to meet, it shall send a report to government on 1, why it failed, 2, remedial actions proposed to be taken, 3, an estimate of the time period within which inflation shall be brought back within, the target shall be achieved. Now, you know, nowhere in the law does it prohibit or mandate the government to make it public or the RBI. So the government has merely taken cover under the fact that it has not been wantonly mandated to make it public. But it does not prohibit either. So it's really a choice the government has made. And I would submit that it is an unfortunate choice, because we would have known by when RBI expects the target of 4%. We would have known, you know, what steps they will take to reach there. This is something the economy needs to know and needs to debate. At least in this case, it is very obvious what the letter would contain. They could not achieve the target because of COVID and a whole host of supply constraints. But if inflation targeting is going to become an institution, we need more sunlight on it so that it becomes a healthy institution. So I would submit that it is a little unfortunate that the government has chosen not to reveal the letter.
Well, so we don't have the letter or the RBI report, the government telling Parliament that it is not going to be available for public consumption. Lata, many thanks for joining us. Another matter of debate, the Union government has told the Parliament that it is not considering any proposal to restore the old pension scheme. It has told opposition-ruled states who have refused to adopt the new pension scheme that the government cannot return the accumulated corpus as there is no provision under the current laws. Sapna joins us now with the details. This is the first time, Sapna, that the Union government has told Parliament what the position is as far as the union is concerned on this debate of NPS versus the OPS. Take us through the government's stance and where does this leave things?
Well, surely the union is very much clear on the fact that, you know, they don't really have a role to play as such on, you know, states entering into NPS. I think there was enough clarity on that front. And here on their part, they're extremely clear that there is no question of going back, and, you know, the reasons there are extremely obvious. There has been a massive debate on it before NPS was rolled out. In fact, you know, that continued for a long period of time, and states themselves took a lot of time to come into the system, right from 2004 to 2010. So it's pretty much a done deal. Plus, there are massive fiscal implications. You know, if you have some of the states going back to the OPS, there can be massive fiscal implications. And, you know, there is an advisory all around, or there is an intent both by, you know, by various institutions, by Reserve Bank of India, by Finance Commission, by GOI, by Finance Ministry, you know, by various experts, that fiscal consolidation or fiscal prudence is very much required. So keeping all of that in mind doesn't really make sense, you know, for this reversion. Of course, unless, you know, some of those states will go back to OPS, maybe making some fiscal savings, at least in the initial years, you know, because of the way OPS is structured. Maybe that could be one of the reasons. But overall, it's not very productive, so to speak. This is what experts and officials tell, you know, across the board. This could also have some implications for center-state relations. You know, there's a lot of central assistance that is taken by states. You know, sans that, if you look at their budgets, you know, they don't really have too much resources to, you know, spend in terms of capex. And there has been a lot of emphasis on capex as well in the last 2 odd years by the center and to an extent by the states as well. So all of that, you know, becomes a bit of a question mark, to so to speak, at some point in time. Also, let's be very clear that why this, you know, why the fact that this money cannot be returned, simply because, you know, states can enter voluntarily into NPS, but when they exit, they are not the parties. The contract is between the NPS trust and the pensioner. So even if the corpus has to be recalled by some of the states because they want to revert to OPS, that is not feasible.
All right, Sapna, appreciate you joining us. And with that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of Business 360. Thanks very much for watching. Stay tuned to CNBC-TV18. The news continues when we return.